Any day. There it is. It's live now.
Hey, there it says it's live. Here we go. No more of you talking for the moment. No, I didn't want to do that. Want to do this? Well, here we are. Welcome to Caching in the Northwest, the only podcast dedicated to geocaching in the Great Pacific Northwest. We're going to talk about caches and cachers unique to this little corner of the country. So order another Diet Coke and make sure that seatbelt is low and tight across your bladder, because it's time to go caching in the Northwest.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the astute viewer may notice that the background behind me, and really, where else are you going to find a background other than behind you, is a little different tonight than it normally is. That's because I'm in the very comfortable podcast studios of Daryl W4. You may recognize that name from some other podcasts, such as the Geocaching podcast, where he co-hosts that with Andy Head Hard Hat Smith and Scott Burks. And he's also the host of Geo Gearheads, the podcast that we do together. So hopefully those listening to this podcast aren't going to notice any difference, because you can't hear the background. And that's really what I'm hoping for. Though. Oh, background check.
Yeah, we have to run a background check.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm here is Daryl and I are going off to, how else do you say it, the Woodstock of geocaching events. That's Geo Woodstock. Okay. See what I did there?
You are just a wordsmith.
Yeah, thank you.
You're something. Let's just leave it there. We don't have to go into what that something is.
Oh, thank you. No, we don't want to.
But hey, safe travels to you guys. Hope you have a great time back there at Geo Woodstock.
Thank you.
Tonight, however, is not Geo Woodstock. Tonight is the night to talk about pocket queries. PQ. Mind your P's and Q's. PQs, pocket queries, are only for members, premium members, paid members, because I think anybody can be a member for free, right? But premium member
good point.
of geocaching.com. Premium membership does have its privileges, and at $30 a year, it's a good deal. It could save you much more than it costs.
I think so. You know, pocket queries, in my opinion, are far and away the main reason to become a premium member at geocaching.com. There may be other good reasons, but PQ's right at the top of that list.
Is it a long list?
It's relatively long.
Okay.
There are a lot of features to becoming a premium member.
Yeah. Well, pocket queries are good. Perks, there you go. You can create pocket queries from, well, a plethora of criteria, actually.
You keep using that word.
Yeah. You can create them from terrain and difficulty ratings, cache type, found status, the date they were placed, the distance from a specific geographic point, cache attributes. There are lots more, but that just names a few. Why would we use those things anyway?
Well, the main reason to use them, one of the big reasons is when you do group caching. That way you can make sure everybody's on the same page. They're all looking at the same list of caches and able to pull through that. Perhaps you want to hit them in a particular order. That's a really good reason to use pocket queries.
Yeah. So kind of like a cache machine might be a real good use of that.
Exactly.
Trying to keep everybody synced, for lack of a better word. Syncing multiple GPSRs. Because sometimes, even if you're not in a group, if you're just caching with, you might have more than one GPSR with you, even if you're not in a group. And it's nice, some would say crucial, to have the data synced and identical and, well, the same on all those GPSRs. Imagine, if you will, picture, if you will, you're going out with a car nav unit, handheld GPSR, smartphone, maybe even a tablet or iPad or something like that. You load a Pocket Query into your handheld GPSR and the same one in your car nav unit, and then as you drive along, you can see them on the map as you're going, and you can tell your passenger, "Oh, there's a geocache right there," and they'll say, "Of course there is."
You've
Not that
met
that's
my
ever happened
wife.
to me. And my wife and my sister and a long list of people that have traveled with me while I look at the GPS. But it's easy then you can use the car nav to navigate to the general proximity of the next GPS or geocache, and grab your handheld unit that's been powered off to save its batteries, or charging in the GPS in the cigarette lighter, and head out to actually do the final few meters for our Canadian friends. Find
Do
that
the
geocache.
deed.
That's right. Syncing data between all those units is nice. Sometimes those multiple devices are really just apps on a phone, because
That's true.
nowadays with smartphones, tablets, and other handheld computing devices, you can have multiple applications, multiple programs running that all share a pool of data and have a Pocket Query that syncs all those together. It's kind of nice that way.
It really is. And there are more reasons than just that. Another reason I can think of is you have little or even no data connection.
Yeah.
Daryl and I are about to head off to Woodstock, and mega events ruin cell coverage. You get all those people out there with their phones, and you're lucky if you can get data or even be able to make a voice call out of that place. So having all these loaded up means you can actually do some caching. And it's not only that. Sometimes you go into some really remote areas. It could be Bellingham.
Yeah, I've been geocaching in areas that very little to no cell coverage at all.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you have cell coverage and have good signal, cell phone data isn't always free, and it isn't always cheap. And maybe you're limited on your cell phone plan, and why pull all that data down when you could just have it from a Pocket Query back at home base and have it with you, Or what if you're roaming? What if we make that road trip to go see our Canadian friends, do some geocaching in another country, and find that data rates are cost prohibitive in a foreign land, eh?
Yes, that could very well happen, being cost prohibitive in foreign lands. Another nice thing to be able to do is, say we're going across the border there into Canada. Maybe we're not. We could cross the border and go into Montana. It doesn't matter where we go. There are times that, cache management is crucial. So I want to load caches in this state, but when I cross the border, you know what? My GPSR only holds so many caches. Mm-hmm. Being able to load another Pocket Query with another state like Idaho is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. You can load stuff, and what if you're heading out for a day of virtuals? You can make Pocket Queries, of just groups, types of caches. So, I like virtuals. Virtuals are fun. Virtuals are one of those things we talked about in several podcast episodes ago about different cache types.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you decide, what? Those are fun. We don't have very many of them around anymore. Let's go find just virtuals. Well, you can make a Pocket Query, and you can just have virtuals, or just virtuals and webcams. Those are two rare breeds nowadays. And, go after just one specific type. Whatever criteria you want to filter or sort on, you can do it. I've used Pocket Queries in the past for vacations. So, maybe you're going to take a vacation, go see Grandma over the river, through the woods. Who knows what the coordinates are? You're going to spend the night over there, as you mentioned, in Idaho. And, well, a lot of times in advance, I would make a Pocket Query right around Grandma's house. So when I've had enough of the in-laws and I want to get a little time myself, I go out and do some geocaching, and I know I've got all the geocaches closest to Grandma's house loaded in the Pocket Query, ready to go. And it was good. It worked out well that way.
That's right. You mentioned vacations, but I also do my Pocket Queries based by towns. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to travel up to Bellevue next week. which could happen.
Could. Well,
I
probably not.
have
Okay.
probably not this week. Yeah,
Probably not.
probably not next week either.
It's not near Geo Woodstock at all.
No, not this Geo Woodstock. Perhaps a future Geo Woodstock, but that involves time travel, and we're not going there.
Okay.
I'll have these pocket queries set up for the major areas that I would go to, and I have them run automatically every week. So if I know I'm going up there, I'm going to grab the pocket query, knowing it's only 2, 3, maybe even 4 days old. It's going to be good enough for the time when I'm up there. And again, it helps me manage caches in my unit, be that a cell phone, smartphone, or a GPSR.
Mm-hmm. A Dell Axim running Mapopolis software, which is how I found quite a few of my early geocaches. Loved that program and that device. It was great. And it had no cellular capabilities whatsoever. So any point in there had to be brought offline. And I would load pocket queries, and as you mentioned, I'd keep one for right around my home, right around my place of employment, and maybe a couple of cities that I would visit on a regular basis. And you can't automate them, so 2 or 3 times a week I would open my email in the morning. There'd be my fresh pocket queries sitting there looking at me. I had a script on my computer. I could download them, drop them in a folder, and they would pop right in there. It was great. So if I found myself in the next town that I would get to often enough to have a pocket query pre-built, I knew that I could just go in and load that up and be ready to go. I was thrilled because for years, for a long time, I don't know for years, I can't remember the time frames, but for the longest time, that was all you could do. You could only pick one point on the map and establish a radius around that point, and that was where your pocket query was. And I have relatives in the next state. It's a several-hour car drive there, and we would take off 3 or 4 times a year to go visit Grandma, as I mentioned. And I would have a pocket query home, and I would have a pocket query at Grandma's house. But along the way, you were kind of stuck unless you could do some creative downloads and data prep before you left. And then they came out with caches along a route.
Is it route or route?
Yes. Is it theater? Never mind. Is it color or with a U or color without a U? I'm sure Land Monkey would have something to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
But caches along a route are really very useful for car travel. I think it's very convenient that the abbreviation for caches along a route spells car, C-A-R. So as I mentioned, go to Grandma's house. Now I have a daughter that's on the other side of the state in college, going over there. If you should be so lucky to be able to afford a vacation, I'm not sure what those really are. It's been a long time since I've had one, but people do those. And you can go in and you can establish a route if you prefer, starting and endpoints, and pick your path and tell it, I want to download geocaches in a pocket query along this route. And you can say whether it be a half mile off the road or a mile off, you can establish the width. And sometimes you had to get creative with how far you went off because they were limited by number of caches in the pocket query. But they were a really nice thing to have after only being able to do static location pocket queries.
Oh, definitely. And, I like to use caches along a route and bookmark list. You can take a bookmark list, make that into a pocket query as well. And, I use this as a tool to cherry pick the really good caches. Now, this is something that Daryl has taught me. And so how many times have you used caches along a route and you go, oh, look, there's a cache and it's only 100 feet off the road. But you realize you have to drive 5 or 6 miles to actually get there because it's not accessible from the road that you're on. So, the wife and kids won't put up with things like this for very long. So you're cutting into the time they get to spend at the hotel pool.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll create a route, and then I'll go through and look at the individual caches and verify that, I can reach them from the road that I'm driving on. Perhaps they're just off. They're, a block off the road, or, it's a rest stop along the way, something like that. So this cherry picking process takes a little longer, but it results in less family frustration, and that means more caches for you.
Hey, there you go. Less family frustration is a good thing.
Yes,
Because
it
remember,
does.
kids, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's what I've learned.
And yeah, I think we both have learned that the hard way.
No comment on that, sir. Moving on. We should
Our wives don't
mention.
listen to this podcast, do they?
I'm not going to even comment on that either.
Okay.
One never knows. Do one.
Do one.
There is a special pocket query type. It's known as the My Finds pocket query. It used to be a really important query to run because it was the only way to get your data on your finds and what you've done and throw it into other tools like GSAC or It's Not About the Numbers. Now geocaching.com has added some APIs and made APIs available to developers, and developer can tap right into your finds and you can get stats and cool data and bologna sandwiches printed out on 3D printers and stuff like that.
You've gone completely off track here. You
Chocolate
should
chip
get
cookies?
back onto the route. You should route back to the route that you were on.
Anyway, developers can tap straight in and get cool data without having to pull the My Finds pocket query. But I believe it's still there. We've not run it in some time.
No, it just kind of hangs on, and it's for old time's sake.
For us old timers.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I used pocket queries. I created a whole series of pocket queries one time. And my idea is I wanted to take all the caches in the state of Washington and load them into a single GPSR. I was using a Garmin Oregon. I still am using a Garmin Oregon, by the way. My trick was to load them as points of interest or POIs. So I tried multiple different ways to group these caches together. And what I hit upon was to use the date placed as the criteria.
Okay.
So I'd start with, where do you start? You start at the start. You start at the start of geocaching.
Yeah.
And, in the first couple of pocket queries, I could choose huge chunks of years because there weren't that many caches placed at the time. And I'd work the dates until I hit 1,000 caches, and I'd back off just a little bit so that I know I've got them all. And then write down that date, go create a new pocket query starting from that time and moving forward. And I created all these series of pocket queries, and my idea wasn't going to run them every week. No, I run them about once every 6 months. And, since, Dr. Braun here knows that you really can't travel back in time and place more caches. So these pocket queries, right? You can't, can you?
I'll have to ask him if I ever find him.
Okay. If you ever run across him in time.
Yeah.
You can't go back in time and place these. So these pocket queries are only going to get smaller as caches are archived. That's, they'll still work. They're not ever going to, explode and suddenly, you're missing out on caches. So, so I would take the results of these pocket queries, run them through the Garmin POI importer, and import them into the Garmin as, I just said it, POIs.
There you go. Yeah, because there's a limit to the number of caches you can have in the GPSR, but not the number of POIs. Is that correct? That's
correct. Isn't that cool? There is a limit to the amount of memory, but, you put them on a 16 gig card, you've got more than enough space.
Yeah. And it won't be the detail in the POIs as you would in a normal cache listing. It's just coordinates, right?
It's coordinates, names. You can throw in hints.
Okay.
And,
so like difficulty ratings?
I think I threw in difficulty and terrain ratings just to work those in. So I kind of knew what I was looking for. That's really kind of creative and very, very ingenious. I also have to say, sounds like a lot of work. And I either know that you're extremely nerdy for coming up with that solution, or I'm extremely lazy. Because, frankly, I haven't run... Pocket queries are awesome, don't get me wrong. They are a wonderful tool. But, frankly, I haven't run them in a long, long time because with the advent of smartphones and data plans, anymore I just whip my smartphone out and go, geocaching app, caches near me. That looks fun, let's do that. And, I find I do far less planning ahead.
but they still have their time and place. They're still an awesome tool. And maybe there's somebody out there that is still using them in creative and different and exciting ways. Give us a call, 253-693-TFTC. Email feedback@cachingNW.com. Let us know, how exactly are you using Pocket Queries in unique, creative, exciting, and interesting ways? Give us your wacky and creative ideas.
They could be very wacky, like trying to put POIs into your Garmin Oregon because, well, you never know where you're going to be, and if you just happen to be out and about and thinking, I could get a cache right now if I knew where one was.
What if you find it in Oregon?
You just look. Oh, you could. No, I got nothing. Then I have to use my smartphone.
But it's a Garmin Oregon.
Oh, yeah. How does that work?
Mind blown. Okay, never mind.
Okay. Hey,
Reel
tomorrow I'm heading out to St. Louis and Geo Woodstock with Daryl. So we have a shared Pocket Query that we've loaded into our smartphone and GPSs. So we're also going to try to get 11 icons in a single day.
Wow.
How's that for fun?
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
I've
never gotten quite that many. You not only may you not have 11, but 11 in a single day. Is that something to shake a stick at?
And it's so much better than 10.
Oh, definitely.
It's 11.
It's not as good as 12.
Well, no.
But I don't know if 12 is doable. 11.
Yeah.
Goes up to 11.
That's right.
So now I mentioned Geo Woodstock because next week I'm going to be doing a recap on Geo Woodstock. And so if you want to call in and send us your memories of Geo Woodstock, perhaps something like number 8 that was right here in Carnation, Washington.
Number 1 in Louisville, Kentucky.
Number 1 in Louisville, Kentucky. How about that? Yeah. And number 10 was back at Louisville.
There you go.
So, it's a cyclical thing. Every 10
all about Geo
Woodstocks, they got to go back.
Sure.
The week after that, so we're doing Geo Woodstock next week. Week after that, we're going to be talking about doing geocaching on business trips. So if you've got any great tips there, send those in to us too.
Yeah, definitely.
Witsen, why don't you tell them how they can get a hold of us?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank them for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching the Northwest, because we really do appreciate both of our listeners out there. You can be part of the show. As you mentioned, send us your feedback. You can do that by calling us at 253-693-TFTC. Leave us a comment, correction, question, comment, anything, day or night. Give us a call. Of course, you can also email at feedback@cachingnw.com and visit cachingnw.com for the show notes on this show or more about any other Caching the Northwest podcast. Your support helps to keep quality shows coming. And if you like this show, click the PayPal button on the website, won't you? This show is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Copyright 2014 by Chris Humpenauer. Peace out.
Until we meet again, go out and go caching in the Northwest.
In the Northwest.